another video on aliens. So I've done a little digging and I found some interesting stuff, including one piece of fact that I even forgot about, a piece of historical fact, that is. First, I will say that this alien lore has never so much fascinated me as what has piqued my interest and mainly is people's belief in it. I spent some time researching cults, the occult, and mainly Islam because it interests me for the purpose of debunking it and seeking truth. It's like looking at a real dollar or a real driver's license in order to tell the real from the fake, the counterfeit dollar or the fake driver's license from the forensic science and from the art of forensic science. So naturally, textual criticism is what actually fascinates me, and I should do a video on my passion, which is Arabic textual criticism and the manuscripts of the Quran, which has already been said and talked about so much on the subject, and you can find dozens of YouTube videos on. But I did find a new point on that. Anyways, to the subject of the current video, yet another video on aliens. I do think that the reason people are actually freaking out or even acting freaky as of late is because there is another stab at oneism occurring even right now, and one which the church just can't see on its radar because it's focused on so many diverse things. But since reading that book by Richard Wurmbrand, that communism has its roots with Satanism, specifically with Karl Marx, Nazism defined, had its roots in the occult, Druid, Norse, nonsense, runes, etc. And as an added point, is it conceivable that with that fact, that even the trans, LGBT, etc., also has its roots in the occult? Even the designer of the rainbow flag under the Obama administration admitted to that. And his name was Gilbert Baker or whoever. But what is the origin under the surface occurring that is tied to the alien lore and the other men on planets theory as a belief system? And much has been said about the whole religion of the left and that secularism is, in fact, its own religious system in that it replaces man for God. So we should ask the same question about alien lore. What is it trying to replace God with? We should not claim there are or are not men on other planets. Such speculation goes beyond what we can know, and theology doesn't require it. But we do have facts, and speculation is good only to a certain point. Maybe because there just seems to be a continued perpetuation of Darwin's flawed theories on the origins of existence and such, except this time it was going to be flipped. So another piece of fact I forgot about, which I mentioned at the beginning, was Leon Trotsky was assassinated in Mexico around 1940, proving that there was, in fact, KGB Soviet activity at the southern border in Mexico around and probably after World War II. I mean, I still meet Cubans today, by the way, who look very Russian and have Russian names, but anyway. They did this to espionage against the United States, to monitor U.S. military and political developments, and to support other communist parties and sympathizers, which had already been established anywhere from 20 to 40 years before ahead of time. And I've done a couple of videos already on the stab that secularism made in Mexico. There was a whole war in the countryside because of that. So it's fascinating to see that Mexico's fight with secularism occurred in a literal fight, in a literal resistance, and a literal war, whereas here it's a little more covert. Something to think about, something to learn from. But to the subject that I made on another video on aliens, I go to another book, which is Area 51 from Annie Jacobsen. Annie Jacobsen, in her book Area 51, proposed a theory that involved Soviet experimentation, which would be more likely to me. You've got Soviets in Mexico, number one, that's a fact, who maybe, as a theory, this is my theory, and I don't have much to back it up, but I feel like it's a pretty good one, that with the fact that you have Soviets in Mexico during this time, who fling these crafts over, maybe Stalin, I don't know, whatever these commies are, maybe wanted to start a War of the Worlds scenario where people succumb to mass hysteria, coined the madness of the masses, maybe. I don't know any of this, but I speculate, which I'm allowed to do as a free thinker and American, something that the communist, Marxists, and feminists are incapable of. Still, it seems that we still had a strong Christian memory during this time of Roswell and all that. And in this era, which these incidents, occurrences, whatever, especially in the rural areas too, that is probable. Again, it's just my speculative theory. But to add to this speculative theory, I have other thoughts as well that Soviets, across the border, people were tired of 2 world wars. They weren't wanting any other conflict, especially if it was known that there was communist activity going down there in the border, which had already been. I mean, maybe we were just too much in a bubble, or we were just too tired from the world wars. Or there could have been small children in a spacecraft or craft built for altitudes higher than typical planes, which we know was being tested in the years after the Cold War, especially even during the Cold War, perhaps through reverse engineering. But anyways, this would have enraged the American public and probably have thrown us into another world war or a more heated Cold War, perhaps. My third point is the sitting president at the time was Dwight Eisenhower. He definitely was working with the military-industrial complex, which he openly talked about in his famous speech. And with the book, War is a Racket, there was other stuff going on after World War II anyway. And that's where there was a huge military-industrial complex, which makes me even wonder if there was even one before World War II. So we had already had large trading going on with Japan even before World War I happened. So, interestingly enough, concerning Dwight D. Eisenhower, his great-granddaughter, she even thinks she's an alien, which is very wacky stuff. And it just makes you wonder what these elitists and these people in that alien lore are actually thinking and actually doing. I wonder if it's its own, like, occultic, Gnostic religion that's already happening now, like hidden knowledge and all that crap. But and my fourth and final point is by the 70s, people realized that they'd been duped into spending all their tax money on the wealthy to perpetuate globalized empire, which similarly, in this one sense, similar to Rome, which was constantly fighting overseas, fighting at home, etc., the communists took advantage of this opportunity on the local and international front, mind you, with civil rights taking over, which we've seen that was meant to usher in things like gay marriage and complete free reign for legislating sin. At least that's what it has been perverted into. I don't know if that was the original intention of legislating civil rights and such, but still, we see that that's what it has decayed into. What we do know is, and is supported by historical evidence, is that, number one, Soviet intelligence operated in Mexico to further communist means. Number two, they targeted U.S. military and nuclear information. And number three, Mexico City was a known espionage hub, i.e. Leon Trotsky was assassinated around 1940 and such. So this, with Annie Jacobsen's assertion, speculative theory, whatever, in her book Area 51, leads me to assume that the Soviets threw all ethics and morality out the window and, crazily enough, tried their best to cause unrest, fear, and perhaps, again, speculative theory, the unthinkable, which was a human rights and ethics dilemma that I believe we're still trying to grapple with and process in our own American psyche today. We know that the enemies of the Lord do not care about human life. We know that they are in fact bestial and demonically influenced. And just look at people who support abortion. But to try to conceive of something like I've proposed, and just could be my speculative theories run amok, and I hope they are, we'll have to see what answer Hegseth, Congress, and the others, the like, come up with. There's already been congressional disclosures like whistleblowers or whatever, and they're trying to slowly let this stuff come out because you've got a period where at least 2 generations of people have been lied to, or it's been swept up under the rug. and the consequences of what we've done as a nation is just unthinkable. It is unthinkable to think that somewhere, I think it's up in the 60s to 80 million children have just been aborted just for the sake of convenience, and that's unthinkable to begin with. But we'll see what answer these people come up with. I do believe it is interesting that Obama opened his big mouth, even though he's irrelevant and washed up. It's still bitter that he lost the Hispanic vote because he's a pendejo. Pero, look, I believe he did open his mouth to say, quote, aliens are real, but I haven't personally seen them, end quote, so that he could add to the chaos, which ultimately, as the track record shows, Marxists and communists do. They always contribute to chaos because they themselves are at war with reality and they just mess things up. And this is where the real action begins, not to be dramatic or anything. But if speculations prove even to be half true, we who read and try to keep up with the times as best we can and discern, which is biblical, according to that verse about the tribe of Issachar, we must cling to God's word for truth and be Bereans and continue to uphold reality as the means of sacred, sacramental living as our ethical response in a lawless time and in an adulterous, lawless, sinful generation. Truth is the greatest freedom one can attain. Fear is the greatest liability to living not by lies. Live not by lies, to quote a very famous person, Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Because in the end, truth will win, and God will strike down his enemies. We are free because we think we are free. That's one of the great things that was left to us from the Enlightenment period and the Founding Fathers. And we must make a vow with God and with reality so that we don't repeat the same mistakes of sinful humanity before us.